Imagine walking into a maze where every turn could take you deeper into darkness, and somewhere inside, a creature with the body of a man and the head of a bull is waiting for you. You have one job: kill it. But there's a problem. Even if you survive the monster, you still have to find your way back out. This is the story of Theseus and the Minotaur, the hero, the monster, and the impossible maze that stood between them. But to understand why Theseus entered the labyrinth, we need to go back to the beginning. The Minotaur wasn't simply a monster that appeared out of nowhere. He was born from a chain of events involving the king of Crete, the gods, and a broken promise. And the labyrinth wasn't built for anyone to explore. It was designed to keep the creature trapped inside. Meanwhile, Athens was paying a terrible price to Crete, sending young people into the labyrinth as tribute. Then Theseus made a decision that would change everything. He would go with them, and face the Minotaur himself. The Minotaur's story begins with Minos, the powerful king of Crete. When Minos asked Poseidon to prove his right to rule, the god sent him a magnificent white bull from the sea. Minos was supposed to sacrifice the animal to Poseidon, but he decided to keep it instead. The punishment was bizarre and horrifying. Poseidon caused Minos's wife, Pasiphae, to develop a powerful desire for the bull. With the help of the craftsman Daedalus, she approached the animal, and their union resulted in a creature with a human body and a bull's head. He was known as the Minotaur, or Asterius in some ancient sources. Minos couldn't simply let the creature roam free, so he ordered Daedalus to construct an elaborate maze, the Labyrinth, and imprison the Minotaur inside it. But the Minotaur wasn't the only problem. Athens had become trapped in a different kind of nightmare. After a conflict with Crete, King Minos demanded that Athens send young men and women to Crete as tribute. According to the tradition recorded by ancient writers, these victims were sent into the labyrinth, where they would eventually be killed by the Minotaur. For Athens, this wasn't a one-time tragedy. The tribute had to be paid again and again. Every time the ship sailed from Athens, families knew that their children might never return. Then Theseus decided to end it. Instead of staying safely in Athens, he volunteered to join the next group sent to Crete. His plan was simple: enter the labyrinth, find the Minotaur, and kill it. Theseus wasn't simply being sent to Crete. According to the tradition, he chose to go. He joined the young Athenians and prepared to face the Minotaur himself. But before the ship left, his father, Aegeus, made him promise something. The ship would sail with a dark sail on the journey to Crete. If Theseus survived and defeated the Minotaur, he was to replace it with a white sail on the voyage home. That way, Aegeus could know the result before his son even reached the shore. It was a simple signal, but it would become one of the most important details in the entire story. With the ship prepared, Theseus sailed toward Crete, and toward the labyrinth. When Theseus and the other Athenians reached Crete, they were brought before King Minos. But before Theseus ever entered the labyrinth, someone noticed him: Ariadne, Minos's daughter. She became captivated by the young hero and decided to help him survive. But there was a problem Theseus hadn't solved. Killing the Minotaur was only half the challenge. The labyrinth had been designed by Daedalus to make finding the way back almost impossible. Even if Theseus defeated the creature, he could still become trapped inside. Ariadne understood this. So she gave Theseus something far more valuable than a sword: a way to retrace his steps. With her help, he would enter the labyrinth carrying a simple thread, hoping it would lead him back to the entrance. Ariadne's solution was surprisingly simple. She gave Theseus a ball of thread and a way to use it as a guide through the labyrinth. Theseus would secure one end near the entrance, then carry the thread with him as he moved deeper inside. Every step forward would leave a path behind him. That meant he didn't need to remember every corridor or guess which turn would lead back to safety. If he found the Minotaur, he could fight it. And if he survived, the thread would show him the way out. In ancient accounts, Ariadne's help is what makes this escape possible. Theseus wasn't relying on strength alone. He had a plan, and now, with the thread in his hand, he entered the labyrinth. Theseus stepped through the entrance and disappeared into the labyrinth. Behind him, the thread marked the path back to safety. Ahead, somewhere beyond the twisting passages, was the Minotaur. The deeper Theseus went, the farther he moved from the world outside. He couldn't simply turn around and walk back, because the maze was designed to make its paths difficult to follow. Every turn carried him farther from the entrance and closer to the creature he had come to kill. The silence around him must have made the uncertainty even worse. But Theseus kept moving, following the thread behind him and searching for the monster ahead. Eventually, somewhere deep inside the labyrinth, he found what he had been looking for. And then Theseus finally saw it. The creature at the heart of the labyrinth, the Minotaur. In the ancient stories, it wasn't a giant bull or a supernatural beast covered in armor. It was a creature with the body of a man and the head of a bull, confined inside the maze built to contain it. There was nowhere to run. Theseus had come all this way for one reason, and now the moment had arrived. The two faced each other, and the fight began. The ancient sources don't give us a long, detailed battle scene. In Apollodorus's account, Theseus defeats the Minotaur with his fists. That's it. No magical weapon. No army rushing in to help him. Theseus kills the creature alone. But defeating the Minotaur solves only one problem. Theseus is still standing inside the labyrinth, surrounded by passages he can't easily navigate. The monster is dead, but Theseus still has to escape. With the Minotaur dead, Theseus still had one final problem, finding his way out. But he didn't have to guess. The thread Ariadne had given him was still stretched behind him, marking the path he had taken into the labyrinth. Theseus followed it back through the maze until he finally reached the entrance. The other Athenians were freed, and Theseus escaped Crete with them. The plan had worked. He had entered the labyrinth, killed the Minotaur, and found his way back out. But his journey home was about to take a tragic turn. Theseus didn't leave Crete alone. Ariadne, whose help had made his escape possible, left with him. But their journey home would not end the way we might expect. During the voyage, Theseus stopped at the island of Naxos, and Ariadne was left behind. What happened next depends on the ancient source. In one tradition, Dionysus found Ariadne and took her as his wife. In another, the story ends much more tragically, with Artemis killing her at the command of Dionysus. So the ancient stories don't give us one single version of Ariadne's fate. But while her story was coming to an end, Theseus continued toward Athens, carrying a promise he had made to his father. As Theseus sailed back toward Athens, there was one thing he was supposed to remember: the signal to his father. If he had survived, the ship was meant to return with a white sail instead of the dark one. But Theseus failed to change it. From the shore, Aegeus saw the ship approaching with the dark sail still flying. He believed his son had been killed by the Minotaur. Overcome with grief, Aegeus threw himself from the cliffs and died. When Theseus finally reached Athens, he discovered what had happened. He had defeated the Minotaur and escaped the labyrinth, but his victory had come with a terrible cost. The hero had survived the maze, but his father had not survived the journey home. The story of Theseus and the Minotaur is more than a hero defeating a monster. Theseus has courage, but courage alone isn't what gets him out of the labyrinth. He needs Ariadne's help and the thread that gives him a way home. And that's what makes the labyrinth so important. The Minotaur is the obvious enemy, but the maze creates a different kind of challenge. Even after defeating the monster, Theseus could still become lost. Then there's the ending. Theseus returns victorious, but his mistake with the sail leads to his father's death. So the myth doesn't give us a perfect hero who wins and gets everything he wants. It gives us a hero who succeeds, but whose victory comes with consequences. The monster is defeated, but the journey changes Theseus forever. Theseus entered the labyrinth to kill a monster, but the real challenge was finding his way through a place designed to make him lost. The Minotaur was only one part of the test. Ariadne's thread gave him a path forward, and courage carried him through the fight. But his victory came with a cost he never expected. Thousands of years later, the story still survives because the labyrinth represents something bigger than a maze. Sometimes defeating the thing in front of you is only half the journey. If you enjoy ancient myths explained as stories, subscribe for more legends from the ancient world.